Hello everybody, welcome back to another check-in. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday week. I think for so many of you, at least I know all the clients that I'm working with, lots of you were on vacation with your family or loved ones. So I hope that you all had, I guess, a good time and that you stayed safe. So I actually got to take a little 2-day staycation this weekend myself, which was so nice. We drove like 45 minutes north of where I live and stayed at such a beautiful resort, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that and just what we got up to, how I navigated nutrition for like a holiday weekend, what we did for exercise, did I make any compromises or changes or anything at all. So hopefully we can dive into all of those details. But my goodness, I was compiling a list of all of the foods that I had consumed this week in different categories, like loosely, just to see like at the food diversity that I'm currently consuming. And I was like, wow, there is so much fun stuff in there. So I hope with a little bit more time on my hands over the next week or two, I want to get some of these into the document. It's got all of my recipes. And also keep in mind, make sure that you guys are checking the resources page on the Be a Body website. I'm often putting new things up on there as well. So that's another really great place for free resources, free articles if you're wanting to learn more or just get great, easy, convenient, short-listed ingredient recipes. I know some of you are like, I don't want anything that's complicated. If it takes more than 20 minutes, I'm not making it. And I'm kind of in that way of thought myself. I don't like anything to be too time consuming. Oh, hello, Mr. K. You're going to join us today. It's not something that I want to do and spend lots of time on in the kitchen. So none of the recipes that I put together are usually overly complicated. But I want to jump into all, of my data for this week and just talk you through how my week went. Some of you were making comments in last week's video or the week before and that you were struggling to see the data. And unfortunately, it's so difficult for me to be able to make this any bigger because my sheets are extremely complicated. So what I've done this week is I've blown it right up. I'm sitting at like 150 right now. I'm going to make it 175% so that you can see just this week's data. And I'll try to move my mouse kind of across the screen as I'm going back and forth between different cells that I'm referring to. So I hope for those of you that were struggling to watch it on your mobile phones, I know many of you are doing this or watching this on a treadmill at the gym or you're out walking, and it's just difficult to see in general, I think, when you're outdoors. So again, I'll continue to describe it as best as I can, but this is really best viewed by connecting it to your TV. So I know I get a lot of tags of people just sitting back home on their couch, they've blown it up, it's on YouTube, and they're just watching it on their big 80-inch TV at home, which is honestly the best way to kind of see everything that I'm talking about. But let's start with the weight column in terms of data. So like I mentioned last week, my body weight right now is not really a variable that I'm overly concerned about. I'm not going to be looking at this and making radical changes to anything that I do. Now that I'm not competing and I'm taking a little bit of a breather, it's just less of a concern. I am much more concerned about just feeling good, performing well, I guess getting a bit more R&R and some recovery in after the big 6 months that I've just committed to resistance training and to cardio. I know for me, my body has been feeling really beat up for a little while now, and I haven't had the bandwidth to do the proper, processes of going down the route of getting testing and having a look at, my body under, MRI, just to make sure that there isn't anything, more serious going on, because I have been juggling quite a bit of discomfort in my lower back on my left-hand side for probably a year now, to the point where I struggle to, unless I'm moving around, there isn't really any point where I'm not feeling some kind of discomfort. So my guess is it might be like a light disc herniation or something like that, which blows my mind because I have not lifted heavy in quite some time. So it might just be more of a wear and tear, repetitive use injury type thing. But again, I'm just making a guess at this point. I don't actually know. So, performing well, feeling good, those will be my top priorities, and just kind of getting my health back in check, to be honest, because I have neglected it significantly over the last few weeks. Kay, don't try and play with my phone. This little guy nearly shut down all the videos that are currently loading up from my phone into a folder. He just reached his arm across and managed to swipe the screen. So dude, you can't do that. That's not okay. So yeah, performance, feeling good, and I think just feeling like I have a sense of balance. So to me, that's going to look like pulling back on the overall like volume of work that I'm doing between resistance training and cardio, and then making sure that I've got more of a balanced, diverse variety of exercise as well, because I like doing lots of different things. You know, I love resistance training, I love feeling strong, and of course the health benefits that come along with that, not to mention the aesthetic benefit that can have as well. Obviously that's less important to me in my off season, but I do enjoy other forms of cardio and just exercise and movement in general. So one of the things that I've been really, I guess, persistent with in the last 7 to 10 days is getting back with running. So I don't know whether you guys know this or not. It's probably been a long time since I've really talked about it, but I used to do track sprinting and I used to love outdoor running. So I wouldn't ever do anything really crazy long, but I have been known to, in the past, do up to 10-kilometer runs, just for, pleasure and getting outdoors and being out in the sunshine. So I really wanted to reintroduce that again, and that has proved quite difficult this week, as I'll share with you in a moment. But, I also love doing Bikram yoga. I used to have a subscription or a membership at a gym when I lived in Tampa, and used to do that about once per week. But again, time has always been something that is very finite for me. So I had to kind of get rid of that to fit in other obligations. So that's something that I want to reintroduce, just to kind of keep my body like mobile and flexible. And I feel good when I do that as well. I mean, it's kind of a form of meditation in many ways. So that's another reason, just from a mental health perspective, to kind of have that 60 to 90 minutes of hot Bikram where you're not really thinking about a whole lot else other than, moving your body, breathing, and that has been shown to have significant benefits for your mental health and well-being. That's just a couple of things. There are probably 20 other sports I'd love to get into, but it's just like, where do you find the time? So I'll be prioritizing just the things that are really, really convenient at the moment. So I guess this week my weight has come up on average by 1 pound. So again, previously I was at 134.8. This week, I'm clicking on the cell right now where I am 135.9. I only weighed in 2 times last week, just to kind of stay or give you some data or some metrics just to see what a normal, I guess, change for me would look like in that post-diet period. So I'm up a few pounds, I guess, since the end of my show. And then coming over to have a look at my nutrition data, I've got a few days that I know I tracked very specifically for you. So you could see what I did over the 4th of July weekend when I was traveling, and kind of what my numbers looked like, just kind of being a bit more free and open-minded and not necessarily worrying too much about calories. But you can see here on Wednesday and Thursday, now these are busy coaching days for me, and I did not get an opportunity to track. Now, I attempted to scribble some things down on this piece of paper throughout the day, but, again, when I've got 1,000 tasks being fired at me, it's not as important for me to track my macros anymore. I've been doing this for so many years. I know what in my pantry and in my refrigerator are protein sources. I know what a carbohydrate is. I know what fats are. And if I can consume 3 to 5 meals, I'm going to be in the ballpark, and I'm not kind of stuffing myself full or going overboard. I'm just kind of eating mindfully, thinking about how my hunger is when I'm going into that meal occasion, and where would I like to be when I finish that meal. And I kind of put something together that feels, appropriate based on my, present need. I didn't track on those 2 days. I half attempted to track one day and I'm like, it's pointless putting it in. It's like 300 calories. And then I just ran out of time for the rest of the day and chose not to track. But it looks like for the days that I did track, my average compliance, which is interesting, came out at 100%. 100% for both calories and protein, which I'm like, this doesn't seem right. But hey, again, it just goes to show you can fluctuate quite a bit from one day to the next. And it's the average is what's important, at least when it comes to calories. Not so much for protein. That is something that we should be paying attention to as many days of the week as possible. I know for a fact on Wednesday and Thursday that my protein intake was probably around 100 grams because I was making sure that I had 3 meals with a good, 4-ounce portion of some kind of protein. So I'm getting there. How much exactly, I guess we'll never know, but I know it was close. And then on this particular day here on Tuesday, you can see that my protein intake was only 41 grams. Now, I suspect that is probably one of the days where I had eaten more of my calories from, again, I had like leftover brownie, and I think that was the last day. And then I think I drove home from Tampa to Fort Lauderdale like late on Tuesday evening or sometime in the afternoon and didn't get back until quite late. So I was stuck in a vehicle for 4.5 hours, and I didn't really want to waste any more calories on just protein bars. I was like, no, that's not really what my stomach is craving. So when I did get home, I cooked something, and then, that was it. So that was a pretty low protein day for me, but the rest of the week looked pretty good. But I want to bring your attention to Thursday through to Sunday, because really as of Thursday evening, that was kind of me clocking off for the rest of the week. And then I knew that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we were going to be taking a little bit of a staycation. What do we do? Thursday. I know this was actually a day where I went and had the opportunity to train with the lovely Laura Lee chap. She actually lives in, I guess, the area not too far from me. In fact, I think it's called Helensdale, something like that. But anyway, it's a 30-minute drive from my house, so not very far at all. And the gym that she trains at, Iron University, is also obviously in that area. Thursday morning, I know I was up and at it. I had all of my client check-ins to kind of get through as well. And then I also had my training workout planned with her. So again, wasn't really thinking about tracking my macros on this day, but I did get a really good workout in. So we ended up training exclusively glutes. And then I threw in like a glute hamstring exercise to kind of round out the workout a little bit more. And then I ended up having to dash off and get some therapy. So we met at about 12 and then wrapped up our session at 2. And so much of it was just chatting, actually. I've never met her technically in person. I've only kind of conversed over social media. So it was really nice to chat with her and learn a little bit more about her goals and kind of what she's got planned, I guess, in her preparation for the Olympia, which is in 14 weeks now. So that's going to come around very quickly. That was a really fun session because their gym have so many different machines that you just don't see in commercial gyms. And I guess that's one of the benefits of, having a gym that is like specifically like glute focused to really refine, your training programming. The downside is it's not always that applicable for the wider community. And I've always got to keep in mind, when I'm putting together programs, I might have access to all these fancy, or some of them aren't fancy, they're really old, but they just hit the right, they get you in the right spot, where you're wanting to grow. And, it's cool for me to do it because I've got access to it, but not everybody has those machines. So I feel like part of me would love to put together like a new, part 6 Miss Bikini Olympia program series that has some of these movements. But at the same time, I'm like, you guys are probably not going to have access to these machines. How practical is me actually doing that? I'm kind of sitting on the fence here with deciding whether or not to do it. Maybe as these machines become more widely available and more, I guess, gym owners start to invest in the female community and start looking for these machines, then, I can start putting them together. But for now, I'm kind of limited to maybe like 8 pieces of equipment or 8 exercises for glutes that most commercial gyms have. But anyways, we had a ball. My glutes were toast after that session. Her training is really different to mine. I guess she's always done things based on how it feels, perhaps with a less, evidence-based approach. But I mean, she's obviously done so well just kind of working with a coach and then kind of moving in a way that kind of feels good for her. So yeah, we have such a different approach to our training, and a lot of her work is tempo. So for me, that's one of the many tools that are in our toolbox. I'll pull out tempo exercises, and you probably have seen those in some of my training programs, but it's not every exercise. Whereas for her, nearly every movement that we did was very slow, very controlled. And I guess that's how she feels a good mind-muscle connection. She doesn't like training if she cannot feel it. I've obviously stepped away from that or that need, knowing based on all the research that we have, we can do this approach, that approach. There's so many ways that we can get a good hypertrophy response and not necessarily have to feel it. So it was actually a really great training session because I haven't done, that kind of slow tempo for a really long time. So I'd be eager to kind of put some of those exercises up. Hopefully I'll get to put a reel together or something for you on social media so you can see exactly what we did. But that was really fun. And then Friday rolls around. I guess we didn't really do anything special for the actual 4th of July because I was still kind of working and had a few things to get done. But I'm pretty sure Sam and I ended up going, always got to look at my phone to see what did we actually do. So I think he and I ended up going over to, I guess, one of the pools that are in the hotels nearby us, the Conrad Hotel, which is awesome. It's 2 minutes walk. And we just enjoyed a couple of hours in the afternoon from 4:30 to 7:30 or something like that by the time the sun went down, and just kind of hung out, laid around and did very little of anything, to be honest. So that was really nice. I've put some pictures up on the screen here. You can see we had a really nice afternoon. And then we also went out to, I guess, a restaurant afterwards. And I really, really wanted to have this piece of carrot cake from True Luxe, which is another place walking distance from me. And we walked all the way there. We're oh, quick, it's nearly 10 o'clock. They're going to be closed. And we got there and it was before 10 and it was like crickets. There was the lights were off. So obviously they were closed for the 4th of July holiday. We went to another restaurant and ordered crispy tuna, which has been a favorite of ours. It's the crispy rice base, which is fried or pressed some way and crispy. And then they do the what's it called? It's a spicy mayo kind of mixed through the tuna, which is delicious. We also ordered scallops, we had sushi, and I made a couple of little changes, and we had pork or brisket bao buns, one or the other, but it was so delicious. So we had quite a nice meal that evening. I've got no idea of the caloric content because I did not even attempt to track at that point. I was I just need a breather. And I know I hadn't had too much to eat throughout the day, so it was basically all my calories, go for it. What do you want to feel, or what do you feel like? And then Friday was the first day that we kind of checked into the resort. So you can see here I had about 250 grams of carbohydrate, quite a high fat intake for me. And I'm just looking through to see, what was it on that particular day that put me so high in my calories? As I'm looking at the photos, I know I started off my morning, I just had a protein shake and then a Caesar salad with some chicken in it at home. And then when we got to the resort, I had chocolate coated strawberries. We ordered a double smash burger. We split that, and that had a creamy cheese and I can't remember what else, but it was delicious. And then we ordered it was a hot dog. So again, we were a day late to celebrating the 4th of July, but we had this foot-long hot dog that we shared, and it had sauerkraut and crispy onions on top. And again, that had some kind of I don't know, maybe a Thousand Island dressing or something. It was almost is it a Reuben or a Cuban? I always get the two wrong. Whichever one has sauerkraut and Thousand Island dressing. But they did that with a sausage. It was a Wagyu beef sausage. So that was incredible. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's where a majority of my calories might have come from on that particular day. I can't remember what we did for dinner that night. I'm just looking at my pictures now to see if there was anything that I enjoyed at dinner. Oh, that's right. Okay. So we ordered deviled eggs and then we had a pepperoni pizza. So those two things combined with just eating half of a burger and half of that sausage dish at lunch ended up bringing my fats up to significantly more than I would normally eat. But it was so delicious and we had such a good time, and I have zero regrets at all. It was just so nice to be present and engaged and have some good conversations. And I guess I do recall us talking about it, a study design that we've got coming up, which looks at shoulders and glutes. So that was really fun to kind of talk through how that might actually pan out. And I think we're going to be working with Brett Contreras and some others on that study. So I had a good time on Friday. And then what happened? Okay, so on Saturday, this is a slightly higher caloric day again, but I suspect that is because we had quite a few cocktails. We actually took down a couple of different flavored or a couple of different brands of whiskey. I actually sent out to anybody that's on my mailing list, you would have got my whiskey cocktail recipe and the macros for that. So guys, if you aren't part of our mailing list, go and subscribe. You can do that on my website. And then I also sent out to everybody, and it's still available on my resources page if you're interested, my charcuterie board. So that has like a list of, oh my gosh, probably 30 items. They're all, I think all bar maybe 2 were from Walmart, and I wanted to make it really cost effective. So it's an under $100 charcuterie board. You can get everything. And then I basically went through and put in like a portion of everything for a single serve grazing plate. And then I also did the macros. So not only can you see the cost, if you purchase at Walmart, here are the exact ingredients or portions that I would have, and then here are the nutrition targets. So you can see, I think that ended up coming to like 15 or 1600 calories. So you can see here on Saturday, 1500 of those was just from that, and then the rest was probably me just enjoying our dinner and some cocktails. So it quickly adds up when you are drinking calories as well. So that day we didn't do any exercise. Oh no, sorry, I take that back. I'm looking at the wrong day. So that day we did a 2 mile, just over 2 mile run, which was unbelievable. So I don't know, I had all this newfound energy, obviously, from all the calories that I ate the night before. I was like, great, this is my second attempt now at running, and it was a beautiful morning. And we ended up running along West Palm, which just so happened to be the multi-billionaire run, I guess. So we start running along, and then I kind of looked over at a couple of these houses, and they have like the 20-foot high, hedges, but then you can see like in the gates and all these properties. We didn't actually look up what they were, but I have to assume they're probably the cheapest house is probably a $10 million house, and they are all probably 7 to 15 bedroom homes, and they are looking directly onto the water. So it was so, like, for me, normally when I'm doing cardio, I'm stuck on my spin bike and I'm looking out onto the water, but you're static. So I mean, my thoughts are everywhere but wanting to be on the bike. But for the run, I was just like, oh, it's so pretty. Wow. What do you reckon that one's worth? Like, Sam and I were running together. So it was actually a really good run. And it was, by the time we kind of got to the end, I had to like cut myself off. Like, I was really enjoying it. I probably could have gone for a little bit longer because it was such a beautiful day, but it was very hot. It was like probably 90 degrees by the time we got going. But wow, it makes such a difference when you have like nice scenery to look at. So that was my second run back, and you can see here we did 2.3 miles. I think our average run time was about 8 minutes 20 for each mile. It might have even been a little bit faster. I burned 254 calories according to my watch, and that was just on 20 minutes. And then we kind of walked the remaining 30 minutes. And then as soon as we got back to hotel, we quickly took our little dog out, and then we did a quick 45-minute workout in the gym. I don't know why this is saying 80. That's not correct. But anyway, it was just quick one and done. We went through some glute exercises, shoulder exercises, and that clocked in at about 410 calories. So that was a really active morning, but I also knew we were going to be indulging for the rest of the day and laying around doing a whole lot of nothing. So I always feel good. I don't know about you guys, but if I can get active in the morning, I feel less sluggish, I feel really energized, and I'm just in a great mood. So that kind of took us through to about maybe 12 o'clock. And then we kind of got ourselves all situated and went out to the pool sometime in the afternoon. And it was a dog-friendly resort. So Ray was having a ball. She was allowed out on the pool deck. They had not that we used it because it was obnoxiously priced, but they had like a menu for your pets. So you could order like ground beef or ground chicken. And then they had all the restaurants in the area that allow your pet to attend. And like every other person in the hotel was walking around with like their animals. I was like, oh, this is so awesome. So, and then they left little treat bags for the dogs when you arrived. And yeah, I guess it was very pet friendly. So it was actually really cool. I would definitely be going back there. The place was called U Palm. I just pulled up some pictures on the, Expedia.com just to show you. But like, it was so pretty. And like, it literally looks just like you see here. Like the water was turquoise blue. The rooms were like really flamboyant and brightly colored. Let me go back here. This is like the pool area, the rooms here. Here we go. So it's like bright blue and colored rooms. And then we had a terrace room. So we could literally open up our sliding door. We had 2 sun lounger beds. And then you had like a private curtain that you could make it a bit more, secure if you wanted to. And then we could walk straight out to the pool area. So yeah, it was awesome. And they have a few restaurants on the facility or the property. We went to this place here, which was called Breeze, and they had like live music playing. It was just like, it was so good. I wish I could do that. I probably will try and do that more often because it's so close. And I think for me, because like when I am so head in, business and work, and I feel like I almost, because I go in so hard, I also need to come out and relax really hard, which doesn't normally happen. So now that I don't have the immediate pressure of competitions lurking, although I definitely got the itch on the weekend, I'll share more with you about that in a second. But now that that's not really looming ahead of me, I definitely want to make some more time just to do some R&R and that self-care, because my gosh, like your health suffers, not just physically, but I think mentally when you can't do that or make it a priority. So Saturday was awesome. We ended up going to a steakhouse, I think, for dinner and ordered like a bunch of different appetizers and things. And then we also went to another place and we ended up ordering a pizza to our room again at like 12 o'clock or something. So we had all kinds of things this week. But on that note, since I've got my list here, I wanted to read out to you, I guess, just some of the different protein sources that I've consumed, some of the fun things, and how I've kind of managed to balance that with like healthy, high fiber foods as well, because my average still came in at 20 grams for fiber this week. So despite having, cheese and platters and lots of champagne and wine and some cocktails, like I still have a really good balance because I do, a lot of front loading during the week. And then that kind of gives me that flexibility. So here are some of the protein sources that I consumed. So I still have my ready to drink protein shakes. They're super quick and easy. And if I've got to rush to a meeting first thing in the morning and I don't want to have to worry about cooking a hot breakfast, I will grab a protein shake. So I use the Fairlife brand. I also had a couple of barbell protein bars. So their macronutrient ratio isn't quite as much protein as I would like, but it's pretty decent for a protein bar. So if I have something like that, I might also, quickly make myself a little mini bowl of yogurt or something to kind of just accompaniment. And again, that's a snack, not a meal, but the macros are decent for the protein when I do those things together. I had the deviled eggs one of the evenings. We ordered scallops another night. I ordered prawns, and I always get a prawn cocktail appetizer just as like a little way to boost up my protein, since a lot of the meals don't always have a high protein amount. I had 99% fat-free ground turkey open tortillas. I had steak. I had pesto chicken club sandwiches. I know I had the sausage I talked to you about, which was like a Wagyu sausage. I had a turkey wrap on Sunday. I had a smash burger, pizza. Again, there's protein in that with all the cheeses. And then I had chicken Caesar salads. So those were some of my protein sources. And then as I go through like some of the fun things that I had, obviously the alcohol I talked to you about, I had some of the leftover brownies that I had made. I had French fries, chocolate dipped strawberries, fries, mac and cheese, pretzel bread for one of the appetizers with different dipping sauces. We made popovers last night for dinner. And then I also remember very clearly having a spoon or two of different spreads. So we have like the cinnamon, what's that cinnamon cereal? You guys are like, Holly, it's really Cinnamon Toast Crunch. So I had this Cinnamon Toast Crunch flavored spread, which I just remember having a teaspoon out of the jar, which is delicious. And then also some Nutella spread, just again, little teaspoon out of the jar. I might have put that over like, I don't know, a corn cake or something. So it's definitely not the extent of it. And there's lots of like stir fries and things mixed in with all of that, with veggies and lots of different salads. So I am eating across the board. And that's obviously why I'm still kind of scraping in on the lower end of my fiber goal. Obviously, I would like to be a little bit higher, but I'm also just trying to be considerate of the fact that I've just done like literally 6 months of dieting, and it's been challenging to say the least. So I'm almost convinced that as I kind of move further and further away from the competition prep, that I'll probably see my fiber intake kind of come back up again. And that will just be purely through not having, as many of those cravings for really sweet things that I had to put a ceiling on during during the actual competition prep itself. So a very versatile weekend, lots of calories, 2,300, 2,600, 17 yesterday on Sunday. And I was a bit more mindful of what I was choosing yesterday too, because I was like, oh my God, I'm starting to feel the, when I talked about a few weeks ago, going from a low carbohydrate diet to a very high carbohydrate diet, like over a very short period of time, you can almost feel its effects on your body, not in the way that it looks, but how you perform. So I often, after that Saturday, I know I felt like a little bit just, it was not a pleasant feeling. And I don't like feeling like tight and what's the word, like waterlogged, and it makes you feel lethargic. So again, I don't mind eating that many calories or carbohydrates, and I don't really care what the weight on the scale is doing, provided I stay healthy, but that feeling doesn't feel good. So on Sunday, I definitely was more mindful of pulling back on my food choices. And I remember at the pool, instead of getting, something that was really high carb, I shared a wrap with Sam, and we had like a turkey club wrap or something. And then I had the salad instead of the fries, just so it was a little bit lighter. Overall, I'm pretty happy with this week. I haven't weighed in today, so I'm not really sure what my weight would be, but I suspect it's probably up around the 138 mark, just again because of those two really high days. So as I kind of drop back into my more normal way of eating over the course of this week, just because I'm at home and I'm not eating many of the kind of highly refined carbs, I'm just eating things that I like, then my weight will probably drop back down again. So I will try and get a weigh in, I think tomorrow for Tuesday up and through to Friday. So coming over to look at my exercise, let's look at my total calorie expenditure for the week. So 4,000 was the total accrued, and that was not tracking any of the caloric expenditure from the session that I did with Laurelie. So I actually forgot to start my watch when I was with her. And again, we were like chatting for most of it, or in between sets, there was just lots of stagnant time. So probably wouldn't have been a true representation of the actual work that I did, but more just like the standing around chatting calorie expenditure, which is not the same as what I've been tracking. Usually this is my active calories. So to get to 4,000, that's actually a little bit higher than I thought I would this week, but some of that actually comes back down to one of the walks that I did here earlier in the week. So you can see I did a 100-minute walk. That wasn't intentional, but I got my photo album back from my photographer on Tuesday from the photo shoot that I did the weekend before. And there were literally 2,000 photos that I had to go through, and he's like, choose 10. Then I'm like, oh, okay, just 10. So I like to try and narrow that down. You guys, if anyone's done a photo shoot before, it's so difficult to pick. So I started out like on a roll, and then, oh my God, I was like, this is just mentally fatiguing. So I ended up just I was like, okay, well, I've got to get this done, whether I do it now or another day. It obviously doesn't matter. So I just stayed on the treadmill and kept walking and got that done. So it took me 90 minutes to get through them all and like pick all of the pictures that I wanted, and then, send them out to him. That was a 600 calorie walk almost. So I think that kind of played into, why I might have got a few extra 100 calories than I might normally, because I don't normally walk for that long. My steps were also really high, but again, I think so much of that came from this big walking day. And then there was also a little bit more steps done because I've been doing runs now instead of my spin bike, which is normally, I'm not accruing any steps on the bike. So those numbers have gone up a little bit, and I suspect they'll probably stay up if I continue to do my runs, which I did another one this morning. So I'll be eager to see what my new kind of steps come in at if I'm going to continue to run. So overall, a pretty active week, despite being like a holiday week. But I mean, I don't feel like it was an unbalanced week. I really enjoyed the kind of breakdown that I did. And I think I've still been enjoying just the 4 resistance training sessions a week. That's a lot more manageable than the 5 or 6 is what I used to do when I was really pushing for growth across my full body. I guess as far as my adjustments for this week, I have made a couple of little tweaks to what I might do. And again, I'm putting in goal calorie targets here just so that you can kind of see, what's sitting behind my decisions, but I'm very loosely tracking, as you can see. I just wanted to give you some data so that you can relate that to your own, your own goals. So I'm going to do 5 and 2 again. Usually there's 2 days of the week where I just want to be switched off and have higher caloric flexibility now that I'm not competing. I'm also traveling this week again. So we have the Trainology seminars up north. So I'll be flying on probably Thursday night or Friday morning. I'm not too sure yet, to participate or I guess be involved in that seminar series. So that'll be really fun. Sam is a guest speaker, or I guess the keynote speaker at that event. So that'll be fun to go and support him. And I still haven't seen him present. So for as long as I've known him, last year I wasn't able to do or travel for that event. And there was another one, I think earlier this year, and I was right in the thick of prepping. So I am very excited to go and join him in that. So again, travel always interferes with your capacity to kind of show up and, be consistent with your nutrition. So I think my plan will be either to be intentional about booking a late evening flight on Thursday so that I can get through all my normal workload, get my training done, and then I hop on a plane and I'm already done. Or if there are flights early in the morning, I'd pick the earliest option that I can, since it's a weekday. And then I will, once I get in, I'd get my workout done. And then I believe the Trainology starts or kicks off around noon. So that way I'm not really getting any interruptions. And then I can kind of have the weekend open to do whatever I need to do. So that's how I would plan my training. And as far as nutrition is concerned, again, if I'm leaving my flight or being intentional about booking the latest flight out, my whole day is going to be good. I'll probably be getting on the plane and I'll have already had dinner. Or if I am getting on the plane around dinner time, when I get in, I'd probably go out for dinner, and I always eat at just a steakhouse or something and just have like something pretty simple. That's what I enjoy. So there's usually plenty of options, as you guys know from this prep series. That's kind of where I would eat at. I'd either get the ahi tuna or the scallops or the prawns or the steak, and I can fit that into my numbers and feel really good about those choices and feel really good physically, and I perform well, the next day too. Yeah, that's my nutrition for this week. So I've got a bit of flexibility here from 200 up to 250 for my carbohydrate, 50 to 70 as the range for my fat. And again, I've pulled my protein way back down from the high end of my reference range to the low end of my reference range. And again, since I'm not really trying to strive for major muscle growth at the moment, only in one area really, which is my glutes, I don't really need to be pushing, higher protein targets. And also, I'm not a high risk person for, muscle atrophy either. If I was, in my late 40s or early 50s, then I'd probably be looking at trying to get my protein target to, the upper third or the upper quarter, just to kind of give me an insurance policy to make sure that I'm not losing that lean tissue, especially during a caloric deficit. So yeah, that's my macros for this week. Training, I've got a new program that I'm doing, and it's mostly geared around, my glutes. I talked a bit about that last week. My upper body volume is coming way down. But speaking of, I actually wanted to pull up my Dexa scan because a few of you had asked about that in the comment section of one of the last videos that I did. I talked about it loosely, but I didn't end up giving you the actual breakdowns. So I've got the most recent Dexa scan pulled up on the screen here. Let me make sure I've got the right one. Yep. Okay. And then I'll blow it up just so that we can all see this, or if I can. Yes, there we go. Okay, so I've just blown this up on the screen for you guys so that you can see, the comparison, and we'll go through it together. You can see here my last Dexa scan was on the 16th of December, and I was 12.9% body fat. And then this most recent one that I had done, and again, this is a few days, maybe 5 days after my show. So I had already put on a couple of pounds in that first immediate post-show period. So it's not an exact reference point, but it's pretty close. So I came down to 8.4% body fat here a few days after. So that is a 4.5% change in body fat for my 6-month prep series. So probably not as much as some people would expect to see. I think I did start relatively lean. So that's the smallest change that I have had to observe over a competition prep. You can see my weight went from 140 to 135. That change there is a 5-pound reduction, or 4.9 pounds to be exact. You can see me highlighting that here, that the change is 4.9 pounds. In terms of fat tissue, I went from 18.2 down to 11.3 pounds of fat tissue. So that's a 6.9 pound change from baseline. We could round that up to 7. And then if you look over here in the green, my lean tissue started at 116.7 and then it went up to 118.6. So I've actually increased my lean tissue mass during my cut by almost 2 pounds, 1.9 to be exact. And that's what these graphs here below indicate. So this is the total mass change one, start to finish. Here's the change in fat mass, start to finish. And here's the change in measured lean body mass, start to finish. So I was most curious about the changes in my lean body mass. If we come down and have a look, I guess, at the different regions, it's actually my upper body that changed the most. But before I go and show you those, I just want to make sure I can read this out in order. So here's my visceral adipose tissue mass. So that's actually 0. And it was also 0 back here too in December. So it was 0 then, 0 now. So I'm obviously very low risk here. As I come down, this one's less important. My bone mineral density is really good, but it does differ from region to region. So this picture here on the right, you can see the red color. Sorry, well, I guess it's actually orange. I apologize. So the orange color is lean tissue. And then the yellow color that you can see kind of just at the surface here is fat tissue. So most of the fat tissue that I had remaining right here at the end of my competition was a little bit around my glutes, a little bit around my arms here. You can see I've actually got a nice little layer around my head as well, but most of it is kind of appearing in this kind of thigh area. And that's actually a good thing. You would much rather have that type of body fat distribution than seeing more of that body fat positioned centrally, which is called central adiposity. That would increase my risk of various medical conditions. So the one that I had before, it was similarly displaced, but there was just a greater percentage around my lower body area and a little bit more around my triceps. The area with lowest bone mineral density is actually my spine, which I was like, oh, that's not great. But it's still, it's still in a really good area. But you can see here there's some distribution between my arms, my legs, my trunk, my ribs, my spine, my pelvis, etc. But the total number is actually really good. But as I was mentioning before, the discrepancy between my legs and my arms left to right was what had me baffled. So if we start by looking at this lean mass measurement column, and we've got the 2 separate dates. We've got the December date last year, and then we've got the recent date in June. My right arm back then was 7.1 pounds of lean mass, whereas my left arm was only 6. So this is my dominant arm. So I would naturally expect to see that maybe my more prominent dominant arm and leg might have a little bit more tissue, but I was surprised at there being a 1.1 pound difference at baseline. Then, as we look to the more recent, measurement, I've gone from 7.1 pounds back in December in my right arm to 7.9 pounds. So I have gone up by 0.8 of a pound, 0.7 of a pound during this competition prep. And similarly said, I also increased my left arm by the same amount. So that went from 6 to 6.8. So when it comes to my lean body mass going up by almost 2 pounds, I can actually have my arms to thank for that, which I have to suspect. And again, I have not reached out to the group that measured it, but does that include my shoulders? Because that would be where I would suspect some of that muscle mass has come from. So I'll be sure to do that here in the coming weeks, because then that will kind of help me, breathe easy and know that it wasn't all of my biceps and triceps contributing to that weight, since I wasn't really training or doing any direct training. Now, if we come down and have a look at my lower body, so at the beginning of this prep, I had 21 pounds of, lean mass in my right leg. And my left leg was much lower. It was 19.3. So there was a really big difference between my 2 limbs going into this prep, but they've actually balanced out throughout the course of this prep. So my left leg grew according to this measurement. It went from 19.3 to 20.2. So I actually saw almost 1 pound increase in the muscle mass on my left side. And again, I remember telling you guys at the beginning of this prep that there were some discrepancies. So I was going to be doing more work on my left. And what do you know? I grew more muscle because I was doing more sets on that left side. I did a lot more unilateral work. And somehow, by the grace of God, I grew a little bit on that side. But sadly, I can't say the same thing for my right leg. So my right leg actually came down. So it was 21 at the beginning of the prep, and then it was 19.4 by the end of the prep. So they're kind of more balanced now, which I'm like, okay, that's good. We've got less than a pound of difference in lean tissue mass. So I'm not unhappy about that. Obviously, I did the work on my left to even things up. So, it's interesting. I'm not kind of, jumping to conclusion, but I would have assumed that I had more, if there was going to be an increase in my lean body mass, I would have thought it would come from my lower body, like all my glutes or something, but nope, it's my upper body, apparently my arms. Sorry, those are the two measurements the measurements that I wanted to go through with you, since a few of you had asked about kind of pulling those up. Now, I had a look over at the YouTube platform, and I think there are only a handful of questions this week. So again, I just want to extend to you guys, if you do have questions that you'd like to learn about in terms of nutrition or training, please by all means drop me a comment. I'm looking at these all the time and responding. So next week, if you have questions, I will respond to them here. But somebody asked about dietary fiber and net carbs in last week's video. So they say, do you track net carbs or total carbs? For example, I know some of the high fiber wraps on tortillas can be around 30 grams of carbs total, but they say 28 grams of fiber. Oh, I haven't seen that one, but that's incredible. So the package would say 2 grams net carbs. I never know whether I should track the 2 grams of carbs or 30. So it's interesting in the way that I need to respond to this. So let me start by just saying net carbs is just the total amount of carbohydrate minus the dietary fiber and or sugar alcohols that are in a product. Often at times they are added fibers or added sugar alcohols. Yes, the net carbs are 2, but they're not calorie free. So the food manufacturers are actually allowed to subtract those calories from the food labels. So if you were somebody that was just loosely tracking your calories, as I am right now, as opposed to kind of, looking really deeply into the discrepancy of carbs and fats and protein, although I still care about protein. But anyway, I digress. There's a good possibility that you would actually be eating more calories than what the food labels are telling you. So, if you were intentionally seeking out fat loss, you might actually be over consuming, and that might be what's preventing you from making more progress. So again, depending on what the sugar alcohol is that's in that food product, again, you're talking specifically about wraps and some of those other kind of flatbed products. They probably have a very low amount of sugar alcohols, if any. It is more about the added dietary fiber. Depends what kind of fiber they're adding to their supplement. Sometimes it is an insoluble source of fiber. Other times it's a soluble source of fiber. And that soluble fiber is caloric containing. They do have calories and they're very fermentable as well. So the calorie content of a soluble fiber is probably somewhere in the realm of like 2 to 2.5 calories per gram. So the food manufacturer can kind of take those away and pretend like they don't exist, but you're still getting them. So it's not free, it's just less energy than you would be consuming from a normal, complex carbohydrate. So I guess the best thing that you could do is what I do when I'm tracking. So I want to bring your attention back to my tracking sheets. So over here, when I'm looking at my data, so in this particular example here where it says 358 grams of carbohydrates on Saturday, there are probably several foods in there that were fiber containing. You can see I ate 19 grams of fiber on that day, and I have no doubt in the protein bar that I might have had at breakfast time before I went for my run, there was fiber added. But I'm not subtracting those calories. I'm just looking at how many grams of carbohydrates did I eat. Look, I had 358 grams based on the carbohydrates on the label, not the net carbs. I'm looking at the carbs. So let's say I had multiple products with fiber in them, and maybe my fiber was 29. I might have had one of those crazy wraps that you're talking about. I still track total carbohydrate, and then I apply a normal calorie value for a carbohydrate to each gram of carbs that I consume, which is 4 calories. So I'm probably overestimating what my true caloric intake is here, but I would rather do that than underestimate. What I then keep tabs on is my fiber intake. So each week you'll hear me talk about my dietary fiber intake. Now, I know that if I have only consumed on average in 1 week time period, like 9 grams of fiber, that would be very low, versus another week where I have had, 40 grams of fiber. If my calories were exactly the same, I guess from what I'm tracking, I know that on the day where I've had 40 grams of carbohydrate from fiber, that my energy balance is probably a little bit less. So that's kind of why I track my dietary fiber. I think it's more important to, try and be consistent with that and just stay within the ballpark. And then you can be more confident that your energy balance isn't kind of jumping and ping-ponging around, left, right, and center. On a week where I've, indulged and I've had all my blondie cookies and my brownies and whatever, like if my fiber intake is really low, I know that if I was still hitting the same number of calories that I was doing, during my contest prep, for instance, my energy balance is probably much truer and more accurate to that calorie value than I was if I was eating the same number of calories, but more of those foods were from fiber. It's going to shift your energy balance negative slightly if you are eating high fiber foods, because 1 gram of dietary fiber has a lower calorie value than 1 gram of a normal sugar molecule, whether it's a saccharide or a disaccharide or a polysaccharide. So you're different sugar types. So I hope that answers that question. I don't think that there were any more specific questions that I could see here. I know there's a lot of comments just saying they've really enjoyed this series and that I hope I continue to do that. So yes, I absolutely will. Here's the one about the Dexa scan, and just lots of general enthusiasm for this series. So I think that's about all for this week, guys. I am very excited to get more runs in. I know I'm going to be doing some time trials and max heart rate testing and max push-up and pull-up tests this week with our Love Yourself Fit participants who will be kicking off tomorrow. So I'm going to be putting that up on our private Facebook page for anybody that's involved in that program. So we can all kind of get our baseline measurements, and then we'll do 6-week and 12-week testing and see how everybody's doing. Yeah, outside of that, if you guys are looking for coaching, please do not forget to reach out to my team and myself at Team Be a Body. You can find all of those details in the links in the description for the YouTube video. If you're interested in getting signed up to our training app, Be a Fit, you can head on over and download that either for Apple or Android. And then we've also got our brand new Be a Brain subscription, which is our monthly research review, which reviews 4 different articles. 2 of those are exercise-based, 2 of them are nutrition-based, and they are going to make your life so much more simple in terms of understanding the science, and hopefully allow you to learn a lot more at, I guess, a very convenient way of doing so. It's now available in an audio form. So you can find all of those products and services on our website. Go and check out our free resources page, and I guess I will see you next week.